Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webcast. My name is Christine Dorsey Davis. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio chapter of the American Planning Association, and I am your webcast moderator. Today is Friday, April 16th, and we will hear the presentation Design Thinking, Utilizing Hand Graphics to Explore Ideas. For technical help during today's webcast, you can type your questions in the chat box found in the GoToWebinar tool panel, and I'll do my best to answer those. For your content questions related to the presentation, again, just type those in that chat box when you think of them, and we'll get to those at the end of our presentation during the Q&A. Coming up next on your screen is a list of our sponsoring APA chapters and divisions for 2021. Thanks to all those participating chapters and divisions for making these webcasts possible and free to members. Today, we're sponsored by the APA Urban Design and Preservation Division, so thanks to you as always, and we'll hear from Kay in just a few moments about some upcoming events that the division has. Let's see, coming up next is a list of our upcoming sessions. We have a lot of coming soons. We're just finalizing details and we'll get those up on our webcast webpage shortly. We're booking far out into August right now. So be sure to check back on our webcast webpage, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. It was just very recently today I was made aware that we have a new website. We got it, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. Some folks are not being redirected to our new website, so they're not aware that we have upcoming sessions, that we have distance education sessions available. I believe that was just fixed moments ago, so hot off the presses. So if you're going to our webcast webpage and you don't see any current information, please be sure to reach out to me and I'll get you a back-end link so that you can get to it while our problem is getting fixed. So there's that. Today's session has been approved for 1.5 CM credits for live viewing. To record your AICP credits, head over to planning.org, log into your MyAPA account, and from there you can either search by today's title or event number, both of which can be found on our webcast webpage, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. Make sure you like us on Facebook, just search Planning Webcast Series and we'll pop up. That's where I post important information like date or time changes. When we have new sessions available for registration, I'll post that there. So any important information that's pretty timely, that's where I'll post it. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We record all of our sessions and post them up there. We have over 300 recordings for you. Make sure you subscribe so that you'll get notified when we have new sessions available for you to view and share. That's it for my housekeeping items. Again, type your questions in the chat box as you think of them, and we'll get to those at the end during the Q&A. And I am going to now turn it over. Yep, there's my screen. That's what I wanted. To Kay Dennis of the Urban Design and Preservation Division, who is going to give us a quick overview of some upcoming events. Kay.
Thank you, Chris. Welcome from the Urban Design and Preservation Division. First, I'd like to mention that our next webinar will be in July and will feature MIT Associate Professor and author, Dr. Andre Sebsa. His presentation will focus on key problems and innovative solutions related to how street commerce is intertwined with urban visions and planning goals. In September, Dr. Norman Garrick, who is a professor at the University of Connecticut and a former member and elected fellow of the National Board of the Congress for New Urbanism, will be presenting the concept of the 15-minute city. And he'll use Zurich, Switzerland as an example of one of the world's preeminent 15-minute cities. Then in November, Dr. April Jackson, who is an assistant professor in the Urban and Regional Planning Department at Florida State University, will be joined by a team of other professors from around the country to discuss their findings from a nationwide survey and interviews regarding the climate of diversity in the workplace of planning professionals. The team will provide recommendations which can be incorporated to improve inclusivity. Today, I'm excited to welcome our guest, our speaker, Kona Gray. Kona is a fellow from the American Society of Landscape Architects and a principal with EDSA. His global experience in more than 30 countries with varying resources has challenged and invigorated his imagination. Kona's leadership and innovative design solutions promote welcoming community places and vitality in diverse neighborhoods around the globe. His award-winning projects are inspired by a passion for creative design solutions and a dedication to quality. A very warm welcome to Kona Gray.
All right, I'm going to turn those controls over to
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you so much for the warm introduction.
Here we go.
All right, screen sharing coming on. Okay, everyone. Can you all see my screen?
We sure can. Looks great.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, thanks again for the time. I'm just so excited to be a part of this opportunity to share some ideas with you. Again, my name is Kona Gray. I'm a principal with EDSA Incorporated. We're land planners, landscape architects, and urban designers. And we operate a global firm that works around many different types of projects around the globe. I'm also an artist and a writer, and I focus on issues related to humanity as well as the environment. And today I want to share with you some thoughts in regards to design, utilizing hand graphics to actually explore your ideas. Basic purpose of this conversation is basically to talk about communication and how drawing actually builds community and bridges cultures through visual communication, and essentially understanding the importance of the hand sketch, but as well as computer graphics towards exploring those ideas. Now, I want to be very, very clear, this presentation is not about the ability to draw. It's understanding that, the ability to draw is actually essential for nonverbal communication. It's also a conversation that touches into how drawing well doesn't essentially equate to good design or even good communication. It's really understanding that drawing really matters and technology matters too. Quick educational outcomes. We really want you to focus on the opportunities to express your creativity as planners. You're always looking at ways to communicate with folks, and that can be done through 2D, 3D video as well as audio. We also want to make sure that you know that this is really a presentation that focuses on the opportunity for you to utilize all the tools at your disposal to stretch your creative energy. Now, our educational outcomes, we're going to talk about how the influences of sketching to explore ideas has been very important in our industry. We're also going to touch on the evolution of the design workshop, or charrette, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. And finally, touch on how hand graphics and digital graphics lead to creative interventions. The agenda is really straightforward. We're going to touch on the sketch first, and then we're going to go to the real-time illustration or the workshop. And then finally, we're going to close out with the implementation of ideas. But first, before we get started, just tell you a little bit about myself. That's me, the young, precocious person on the right there. Those are my parents in Seattle, Washington, wrapping up their studies at the University of Washington. My dad is an architect, and my uncle is a civil engineer. I've been in the development industry for my entire life. Grew up working in my father's studio, designing and drawing and learning the whole craft of what we do as designers. It's been very helpful to kind of go through that process as a designer, and it really influenced me to work at EDSA. When I came to EDSA in the late 90s, realized that it was certainly the place that I wanted to be from the standpoint of creating places for people. Our firm has been around for 60 years. We really focus on design excellence, and we have a wonderful global presence, which has allowed us to do work all over the world. That work focuses on arts and entertainment, all the way down to residential living, but we do a lot of lifestyle centers and hospitality projects, urban infill projects, and certainly several projects in the public realm. So our founder, Ed Stone, and his dad, Edward D. Stone Sr. to the right. Ed Sr., preeminent architect in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and Junior, landscape architect, starting our company, really focusing on how to create places for people. And then I was fortunate enough to work with a gentleman by the name of Joe Lally. Joe really influenced me as a mentor and really gave a lot of deep concentration and thought to the whole ability to draw and design and really shape ideas through the process of design thinking. And I was fortunate enough to carry that into my work, into my design studio, working with a wonderful, great group of collaborators at EDSA, just really stretching the ideas and thought in a very collaborative and collegial environment in our design studio atmosphere. But for me, I really believe in giving back as well, so I spend a lot of time with students. This is a design thinking workshop that I did in Seattle at the University of Washington. I'm currently a visiting lecturer at the Louisiana State University, LSU, in Baton Rouge, just having a great time learning and working with students. And then a little bit about our work. So our work, as I stated earlier, covers quite a few different market sectors, but we really believe in creating these healthy living environments in all the work we do. And that work varies from this historic downtown Savannah work we're doing right now. It's under construction. So it's public realm, streetscapes, to wildlife parks. This is a wildlife park that we completed in the United Arab Emirates in an area called Al Ain, which is between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. We've also done quite a few hospitality experiences. This is the W Retreat in Puerto Rico. And then we do some work that some people wouldn't imagine landscape architects and land planners being involved in. We do a lot of aquariums. So this is the Moat Aquarium, which we led the concept and schematic design work with Cambridge 7 and Associates. And this project is moving forward towards construction as well, which is really awesome. And a lot of our work is certainly environmentally sensitive. This is Westlake Park in Hollywood, Florida. This project really focused on allowing people access into this beautiful, majestic mangrove forest to see the water. And then one thing that is really special to me is doing projects like this. This is the Gratney Plateau Park project in North Miami. It's a park that wasn't a park when we found it. It was a vacant piece of land that hadn't been taken care of for quite some time, and the community desperately needed some open space, and we were fortunate enough to volunteer our services to create that transformation for a very well-deserving community. All right, so what is design communication? So when we refer to communication as it relates to design, it's a mixed discipline. It brings in all different types of media, and it also represents the opportunity to communicate with people. But we've been doing this for a while. These hieroglyphs from Egypt demonstrates how the ability to tell stories through the graphic representation of thoughts and ideas is essential to who we are and what we do. For several decades, I've been following this group at IDEO that really has taken design thinking to another level. They've actually created a university internal to their organization, IDEO, that allows people to come and learn how to solve problems, create through the creative process. They've written books and done all sorts of talks, TED Talks and exhibits to really get that whole idea out. But it's pretty fantastic organization that works with the Stanford D School to really allow people to express ideas through the process of drawing. And then I tend to stretch creativity to a whole different level. I think that there are so many other forms of creative expression that can assist planners and designers in the work that we do. I'm a real fan of a group called The Roots. This guy, Questlove, their drummer, is a super exciting person that really looks at bringing creative people together and generating ideas to move them to the next level. And I think that that has a lot to do with what we create. So let's start with a sketch. So I love sketching. I've been drawing since I was a little kid. You know, drawings aren't meant to be precious. They're not meant to be something that you have to, you know, do extremely well. The whole idea is to get the idea across. And so whether you're doing a quick little doodle or writing notes, all these things lead to the creative process. And, you know, been doing this for such a long time that it has become just basically a part of life. And we always highly encourage folks to think about the work they do in several different forms of communication. So you can verbally talk about something, but I gotta tell you, when you can actually illustrate it and start to draw out that experience or that place that people are considering or talking about or dreaming about, it is magic. When we draw in front of our clients in a workshop, it's something that you just can't replace, and clients love it. And even in this world of our new normal, we've been doing this digitally and virtually. So we've been able to draw on tablets and get that information across and really explore ideas in a different way. That's pretty special. I love this image to the right here. This is a friend of mine, John Galloway. He's a fantastic designer and landscape architect. We traveled several years ago on a project, and we were about to eat dinner with our client, and you know, they were you know, sharing with us some traditional ways of eating there, and John actually illustrated the recipe here on the right. So it was pretty cool to see all that come together, and just through the eyes of a quick sketch. And you know, and I think the sketch is always considered something that needs to involve a lot of deep thought, but also a lot of loose thought. You know, maybe something that you're not even sure about, but you just, you know, you want to think it through. And you know, sometimes you gotta put pen to paper or pencil to paper and start to see, well, what would that space look like? How would people be organized in this environment? And really allows us to stretch our creative imagination and you know, and explore things in different ways. And whether or not it's a quick sketch or it's a drawing that starts to get into a lot more detail and composition, where you can really share with your clients and the community the whole process and how things come together. Or if you're zooming in a little bit to show sort of an indoor-outdoor relationship. Or what we do and use quite often, the sectional cut, so you can see how things look in 3D, and even take it even further to the perspective and kind of envisioning what the space would look like that doesn't exist, which is really fantastic, where you can imagine something on paper before it becomes a reality. And I got to tell you, as a professional, seeing a quick sketch evolve and transform into a built project is something very special. And we love doing it. It really is a part of our work and the way we work at EDSA. There's several other great designers that utilize similar tools, and we think it's important to sort of stretch that creative imagination. And in many cases, when we're working with municipalities, we'll do quick sketches or implement drawings that go into their codes and their regulations, so that people can actually visualize the regulations that they're trying to propose. But for us, you know, even utilizing the computer to take sketches into sort of a realm of reality that you know, will really blow your mind, to add shadow and to add lighting and to show night scenes, is just really fantastic. So we are very excited to do this type of work. It's a part of what we do, and it's also a reflection of design and the power of design. Now, next, I'm going to touch on the real-time illustration, the wonderful, wonderful charrette, which you know, is timeless, has a long history in the design profession, and it definitely is something that is necessary. It's part of the design process, in our opinion. And we have a lot of fun doing these workshops, and you learn a lot from your clients and from the community when you go through the process of drawing together. And so I'm going to walk you through some experiences that we've had in this sort of format, and touch on the process and what it means to us to really get people into this realm of drawing together. Before a charrette starts for us, we begin a whole pre-charrette process where we do our research, we go through an inventory, we assemble the necessary team, and we work through all the different elements that will help us be informed before we get on site. And being on site is a magical part of the process. Having that kickoff meeting and having the conversation with all the different stakeholders about what we're trying to do, and what changes we want to make, or what transformations we see, the opportunities we see, is just really special to kind of go through that process. And then being physically on the site, whether it's an urban or rural setting, and walking the land and looking and observing what you see and getting a good understanding for why things are important. A lot of this process leads us to a very, very thorough analysis. And so it's a summary of all the things we see, the opportunities and constraints that really put us in a position to start to strategize. And the strategy is fun. I mean, that's where you sit down with everyone and you say, well, what did you see that was so important? And and in many cases, and this is something we do a lot now, more than we did in the past, is we have community members who know the ground, that live there their entire lives. We do sort of this reverse consulting where they become a part of the team, and they actually walk us through how they know the land. What's the significance of this tree, or tell us about this stream, or talk to us about this old storefront and what's the importance there. And so that is great, because it allows us to start to develop the vision and the strategy and character before we begin to do any drawing. And that's the next step. After we get through those first 5 steps, we get into what we call ideation. We have some initial planning and design moves that we explore together, and this is done typically with a group of professionals, whether they're urban planners or architects, landscape architects, engineers. Everyone comes together, we all roll up our sleeves and we start drawing, and it's just fun. And then the next step is presenting those ideas to the public and the client, and in getting their feedback and kind of going back and forth and refining it. And then finally, after every workshop, we submit a post-workshop summary so that everyone can see the process. And then that is the jumping off point for the next stages of design. And so what we like to say is that a lot of this work you find, it's all between the lines. These are all ideas that start to stretch the creative imagination and get everyone into the spirit of working together. And that's just the beauty of it. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through a couple of projects that sort of touch on the whole process of doing this type of work. And as I stated earlier, we are a global company. We work around the world, and the journey is part of the process for us. And I'm going to touch on this particular job we did back in the early 2000s. Was pretty amazing, because that last segment, the 3-hour drives in a Jeep, really taught us a lot about the land. But before we travel, and even during our travels, whenever we have a break, we sit down and we read and we learn as much about the place before we begin to explore it. And that really helps us to kind of build our confidence. That's myself and my colleague, Mahala, in the background, just going through the program and the brief and reading about the destination that we're about to encounter. And then I started a sort of a process of journaling these visits, these trips, these workshops in a manner that would allow me to keep track of it for the future. And it really is helpful, you know. So the sketchbook that I use is a combination of a journal and sketchbook. So there's, you know, I'll add images from magazines or print out stuff, or I will, you know, sketch in it, write in it. You know, anything that I've learned along the way just gets captured. And we do a lot of pre-research. You know, this is back in the days prior to, you know, having a lot of things digital, where we would just print things or rip things out of magazines, images and thoughts, and pull those all together so we can get an idea of where we're going. Morocco is fantastic. It is an amazing country. We spent a lot of time there. The culture is infused with local Berber tradition. The native people there have a strong French influence. It's so fantastic to see the sort of the blending of Arabic and French, and how they really work very closely with the community and with the land. They're very focused on commerce. You know, whenever you go to the areas where they shop, the bazaars or the souks, people are really interested in learning about you and sharing what they have, and making sure that you're willing to barter, because they love that whole process of negotiation. And so getting to know the culture has a lot to do with the work we engage ourselves into, and, you know, understanding about the history. This is an ancient mosque. It was there that we had the pleasure of being able to take a tour through and learn about. And these are the things that make these memories and these experiences really timeless. You know, just seeing how the land is juxtaposed, how the urban fabric works here, how it's planned. All these things you would think would be trivial, but they're actually very important to the whole process of how we work. And a lot of this planning work and design work, you know, was inspired by, you know, ancient thinking, which is super incredible. But, you know, the spirit of the people there and the culture, and, you know, seeing customs and how they do things is just really great. I mean, they're all about entertainment. The snake charmer here working with this cobra was pretty fantastic. That's my buddy John in the background photographing the moment. And we really got a big experience and an understanding of, you know, what it's like to be there and live there and see how they enjoy life. This guy was pretty scary, but he was so happy to share his ability to work with these snakes. You know, the process of getting out to the site was pretty dramatic. It was pretty unbelievable going through all of that work to get there. This is the Jeep I was telling you about, and we sat in the back of that, you know, old 60s Range Rover, going across a moonscape to get to this site. And our guide, local, you know, indigenous Berber, basically knew the land so well. He was the caretaker. He got us out there. He actually stopped us along the way and invited us into his little mud home to have some tea. So they're very hospitable people and really gracious and accommodating. So it was just fantastic to see this land and understand sort of the elements of it. This is where the Sahara Desert meets the Atlantic Ocean, so it's a very unique topography and ecology and geography. This bay you see here actually occasionally at certain parts of the year will actually open out into the Atlantic Ocean, so it's very dramatic. And so what we do when we get there is we start drawing. And you know, no computers at this time, but even with computers today, we still come out and we roll up our sleeves and we draw. This is John and I many years ago sketching our thoughts and basically sitting down and starting to really understand what the land is saying to us. Our program here was focused on planning for a destination for tourism. The government was really looking to increase the opportunity for people to come and visit. They were hoping to host the World Cup, and they really needed to increase the amount of beds. And this particular site, this government-owned site, was one that was chosen for us to go and look at and provide opportunities for them to develop destinations. Now, we looked at working with the land. All of the habitable spaces are up on the plateaus. The golf and the nature preserve is down in the lower areas. This WED that you see running through the center, or also called an arroyo in our parts of the world, in Texas and other places, is an area where I stated the water, when it rains, it pours. It will push its way right out to the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a very dramatic kind of experience. And then we also looked at, what would this place feel like in a three-dimensional understanding. And so cutting these sections all by hand, measuring them and working through the process of, how the space works was really helpful, not only for our clients, but for ourselves to get a good understanding for the place. And then we do these quick 11 by 17 sketches, just to kind of give people a visualization, taking a photograph and then sketching over that photograph, starting to insert the transformations that we are describing, really helps people to really visualize what it's going to be. And the next project I'm going to talk about is a collaboration, and the upcoming projects after this are also collaborations, which is something we do quite often. We team up with planners and architects and other landscape architects and engineers on all of our work, and it's fun to kind of share those ideas. We had an opportunity here to team up with Martha Schwartz, who's a fantastic landscape architect and a good friend, to go through a process of working with the Downtown Development Authority in Miami at creating a new waterfront experience on the bay, their new bay walk. And so Martha came down to Fort Lauderdale, where we're based, our home office, and we had a workshop, internal workshop, and just brainstormed ideas. It was fantastic. We just, rolled up our sleeves and basically said, let's figure this out, get the ideas out. And you can see traces rolled out. Martha had a really wonderful process of sketching as well as listing. So using those big Post-it notepads, we had a lot of ideas all journaled out and written down so we can start to discover the different aspects of what this place could be. But it was really interesting because it was taking a urban waterfront that was really still very industrial in its sense. It's hard to imagine that in Miami, and providing a place where people would want to be. And so again, through the power of sketch, we took photographs and we sketched over some transformations that would allow people to feel comfortable walking down to the water's edge and spending time there. It also helped us lead our conversation into a logo and a mark for the project and all sorts of different ideas that were presented and sent to the Downtown Development Authority for this competition, which was a lot of fun to work on. Next project I'm going to talk to you about is in Detroit, Michigan, another waterfront project and another collaboration, but one that was really focused on the community. We had a great opportunity to get to know the people in Detroit. We spent some time on site. It's a really great, expansive piece of land that the city owns that wasn't being used for much more than festivals. So every year they would have an annual festival. They'd tear it up and then they would replace the grass. But the community day to day basically used this place for fishing. They came down all the time and they fished and they hung out. And it was just really cool to get to know them and actually sketch their experience and kind of talk to them about what we could do to make their quality of life better. And one of the greatest things we got to learn about was working with our partners, Mia Lehrer and Associates, MLA, out of Los Angeles, was the expression of the place and what it could be. And the woman you see there in the tie is a Detroiter. She's from Detroit. Kat, she's really cool. She walked us through all the sort of the essence of the community and what people do there and what they like. But I just really enjoy the process. Mia and I did a lot of drawing together. It really was helpful to kind of pull all our ideas, get them onto paper, and start to think about what this place could be, And I think that's something that really resonated with the client and also with ourselves. And our whole team was just throwing out these ideas. There was no bad idea. These were all just thoughts, and the ones that rose to the top were the ones that we kept. And we were able to create this opportunity for transformation on this waterfront that inject community into it, drew upon the communities adjacent, put a multitude of different types of things for people to do here, from cycling to playing large play fields, a place for ice skating in the winter and events. We also looked at drawing into the space these towers for viewing, and a really amazing jetty that went out into the ocean, into the Detroit River, to kind of connect everybody to the water, which was really, really fun. And then again, that collaborative process, this architect here in the mid-ground here, Peter Sologub, he's a really good friend and illustrator that loves to draw. And so when we work together, we do these workshops really seamlessly together. It's always a process of drawing in and drawing out and getting people's input. And Peter also uses the simple technique of taking a photograph and tracing over it to show sort of the before and after of what these places can come about. Next project I'm going to share with you is the Cairo Central Park. This is a major urban planning effort that we were involved in. We were actually brought in as specialists to work on a 5,000-acre Central Park, which was a part of this new city. And in this process, we teamed up with Melk, with Jerry Van Eyck, who's a fantastic landscape architect based in New York. Jerry and his team again came down to Fort Lauderdale. We talked about all the different program elements. This was prior to us going to the site. We were able to work with what the urban planners had created, which was fantastic. This local team of Egyptian urban planners won the competition to take this project to the next level, and we were fortunately invited by them to join the team and start to explore the Central Park, which takes a lot to get your hands around because it's a pretty significant piece of property, and in a location that's very sensitive, but it's something that we knew the government was behind and looking to create a new place for the city center. And I'll talk through that a little bit more, but I think what was really important was the ability for us to stretch the ideas from some words into a concept, and then also into principles that were woven all the way through the entire project. We took 7 principles related to the design that we thought would be important, and it really did inspire us all the way through the drawing and exploration of the work. But Egypt is fantastic. I mean, this is the sort of juxtaposition of what you see. You have these really amazing delta experiences. The land is very fertile, and then you have the desert, and it's just it's such a contrast. And in this image in the center, you can see the Nile Delta that's coming down, or going up the screen to the top, to the Mediterranean. And then slightly to the right, you can see another small water body, which is the Gulf of Suez and the Suez Canal, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with from the container ship that was blocked there recently. And then in the image, and I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but in the lower right here, those are the pyramids. So it's a really amazing place. There's a lot of wonderful sort of city planning here, which is very unique and interesting. In the Delta, they have created these sort of town centers where they have places, and so every one of these sort of tan areas are small town centers where people live. And then the green areas are all the fertile spaces where they actually work the land. And then the Nile, as you can see, kind of works its way all the way through out to Alexandria and to the Mediterranean, which is really amazing to see kind of that sort of fabric, which is very unique to Cairo and to Egypt specifically. We did some precedent studies and to kind of wrap our head around this place. And if you look at the fabric, It's very organic. New York very gridded, super fixed. And then we look at Rome as a comparison. It's kind of a hybrid between this fixed grid and a little bit of organic inconsistencies to the urban form. And then finally, when you look at Cairo, it's like, whatever goes. Wherever they were able to make landfall is where they made landfall. And so it's pretty amazing to sort of compare these three timeless cities. But Egypt is fantastic. If you think about the Nile and the Gulf of Suez, these are two major sources of water that they have really cherished, and there were trade routes going from the Nile out to the Gulf for centuries, and these were really important ways of life for them. And then obviously, as we are working with today, they made a cut through with the Suez Canal, which really cut down the time of getting goods and services around the globe. And when we were working with this project, we really looked at a very serious vision. Cairo is mysterious, it's very religious, it's elegant, it's diversified, and it's dynamic. We took all of those elements of what we observed and we put those into this whole idea of a flow from the inspirations of the past into the future, which was the client's desire was to move the country into the future, really honoring that history, but then looking at the opportunity to, cherish nature. They wanted this Central Park to be a global destination, which we agreed with for, all sorts of different types of events. They wanted to celebrate their arts and culture, and then touch on that sort of cutting edge science, innovation, and technology, which the Egyptians are very well known for, going back centuries. The big move here was to promote health, and finally, and most importantly, promote the sustainable environment, which some people may think is challenging. So just to give you some context, our project is the Cairo capital. So it was focused in this area of Egypt that is in the middle of the desert, which you might think is crazy, but if you compare what they're doing here to create, suitable habitation for people, is very similar to what we've done in Las Vegas and also Los Angeles and other parts of our West. You remember this was the new frontier at one point here in the U.S. And so downtown Cairo today is very, very, it's very dense, and there's a lot of activity, and it's hard to get around, and it's challenging for people to do business because it's difficult to drive from one place to the other, or public transportation is sometimes very challenging. And what they have done is they followed our patterns of planning. And so they created a new city called New Cairo, which is essentially a suburb. So it's primarily residential. And so what the government said is that, hey guys, we have to really do something here because we're really suffocating here in Cairo. So the big move here is to move the capital for government as well as any sort of major business to this central location between Suez and Cairo. And the historic Cairo will remain sort of the cultural center. And we thought it was really ambitious, and we're like, all right, let's see where they're going to go with this. And they're doing it. It's getting built as we speak today. So this is the land that has been identified for this large central park, and this is the overall master plan that we looked at and worked with the urban planners on, and this is the central park that we were asked to design. Quite a significant piece of land, and when you start to incorporate all the fingers that work its way into the central park, it's 6.25 times the size of our central park in New York. And then we also had to walk through this whole understanding of, the hinterland versus what we cultivate. And what we learned here was that we only had enough treated water to irrigate 60% of our park. And so that's what we did. We dispersed the sort of hinterland with the desert and the cultivated spaces with the gardens together in a manner that was very artistic. And you can see in this master plan that the ultimate goal here was to incorporate the desert throughout the entire project. what we ended up with were some really incredible images to inspire the Egyptians that were looking at this, and the community that was helping us to walk through this whole process. You know, in find that
Oops, Kona.
that
Oh,
rest.
there you are. We lost you for a
Oh,
second, or your sound at
okay,
least, but you're back. Okay.
okay, all right, great. I'll keep on going. It's pretty fantastic to see this type of transformation for the people of Egypt. The last project I'm going to talk about is the Norton Museum of Art in West Palm Beach, another collaboration where we took, quick sketches and, took those to a built transformation. This is our client working with Catherine Gustafson from GGN out of Seattle, our partner on this project. Catherine's team reached out to us. They're based in Seattle. We're in South Florida, so we know the South Florida material and the regulations and the plants, and so we were able to team up together and really have fun, drawing out this opportunity for everyone to see. That's Catherine in the foreground, Michael Wurtzel next to her, and John Backman in the background. John and Michael are architects, and John actually ended up becoming our client's representative on site. Quick visualizations and concepts. First thing we looked at was the original east entry to this museum and re-envisioned what that could be in a quick sketch. And, Catherine was able to start to explore, how it would look if we were able to kind of strip back some of the elements that were not congruent to the original idea. And that was fantastic, very clean and simple. And it was the inspiration for a plaza we created on the west side of the building and the site to actually draw people from the urban context of West Palm Beach into the property. And this has become the main entrance, actually. And through a series of quick sketches that Catherine did and we did, we were able to really kind of draw out that whole experience. This little bubble you see here in the center is an amazing 80-year-old banyan tree that ended up becoming the inspiration for the entire project. And we worked very closely with the architects. We actually had to muscle them around a little bit to make sure that the building was not encroaching on the tree, which was an important feature. And then we were able to encourage them to go through that process with us because we saw the tree as a focal point from inside the building and outside the building. So it was just really fantastic to kind of align all these different ideas and sketch it out, and then start to visualize it. So this was the original idea with a couple of different planes of water, bridges that connected you to the main entrance, the banyan tree being protected, and actually the building kind of hugging it, sculpted around the banyan tree's canopy. It was just a really fantastic opportunity to see it in life. And then, as we've been using technology quite a lot in these days, we brought in some sketches, and we're able to take those sketches to a digital form, and then we got it built. And so that's the real thing that you're seeing here. And this Rauschenberg sculpture really kind of set it off and really created this amazing experience. And you can see in the background the urban form of West Palm Beach and how that is now connected to the street with the museum. And it's a public museum, so there's great connectivity to the community, and it's super cool. One of the major moves we made was on the south side of this museum. They had created a parking area. They basically turned their back on the original east entrance and created this large parking lot on the south side of the museum, which wasn't being used as well as it should have been. And so we envisioned this lawn and garden and an idea of creating a place for sculpture. They had quite a bit of sculpture that they just could not displayed because there's no place to display it. And we took a quick look at how that space would look cut in section. And then we also took a quick look at how that space would look from the air in an axon view. And so in the background, you can see this is a sculpture gallery on the inside. And then there's an outdoor area adjacent to it that's a covered walk. And we were able to integrate sculptures in the garden, create these little pockets for the sculptures, and even envision the potential for water and a movie screen for night movies. And all of that came together in a digital manner so that our client could envision it even more, which is really great to see. In the background here, this is the cafe, steps out to the lawn, sculpture gallery, places for people to sit. Sculptures all nestled throughout the entire program here, just to really create a fantastic place. And it's built. We got this project built a few years ago. It's been extremely successful. We were fortunate enough to be able to bring in mature material so we would have this fantastic instant garden. These pictures were taken essentially a few days after the grand opening, so you can see the majestic canopy that has fortunately was able to be moved here, and many of the trees that are on site were able to be saved. It just was a fantastic process. And so that's what we do as designers. You know, we draw and we create all sorts of wonderful places, but before we get there, we think it's really important to listen first. And so when we listen, we learn a lot, and that informs our design. And from there, we can create these special places. And as we're creating these places, we know that we want to get input from people, and so we go through a process of critique. And the critique is probably one of the most important elements, along with listening, where we can hear what people are telling us and refine it, and then we repeat it until we get it right. And so that's just the process of what we go through. And the final step in this process of this presentation is just walking you through the implementation of ideas, which is a lot of fun because we have embraced technology. Yes, we still draw. We love drawing by hand, but we love the computer too. And it allows us to do a lot of really cool things creative in the creative process. And you know, it's funny because I'm a huge tech guy, and I look at, you know, the future, and you know, it is here. A lot of the things that Star Trek was envisioning back in the 60s and 70s, and even a lot of the sci-fi people earlier, we're looking at things that we have today. You know, we have computers that we can talk to. I mean, we all have our Siri or our Alexa, and we definitely have all sorts of different elements that allow us to do more. I mean, the tablet computer. I mean, we have, every one of our designers has a tablet, you know, and we draw digitally, and it's instant. And we get it into the computer, and we're able to manipulate it and do all sorts of really great things. And then, you know, I found this list of ideas from these great innovators in design some years ago, and just walked through all the things that they were saying, and it was just really great to understand that, you know, designers are going to do more than just design. And I think it goes for planners as well. I mean, you know, one of my heroes in the world of planning and activism is Jane Jacobs. And so I think about what she was doing back in her time and what we're doing today, and we're still in this world of making change through the plan, and a lot of those ideas happen with sketch. And we're also seeing a change in technology in the era of our profession. For all of us as professionals, we're seeing this bespoke service, become a little bit more equitable. We're getting to a point where we're shifting from reactive to proactive, and we're understanding that people want more for less. And so, you know, being able to, you know, get to that point where we can, you know, explore ideas is something that we all need to embrace. I highly recommend that you read this book, The Future of Professions, because it touches on a lot of things we are experiencing today in regards to our work as professionals. But, you know, technology is changing the way we work. I mean, even through the pandemic, I mean, having this conversation we're having today, doing it through digital means. I mean, that didn't happen often before. I mean, as a global firm, we did it, on a regular basis, but in most cases it was, it wasn't the norm, And so it's great to see this opportunity for people to work alongside machines and, utilizing systems and machines to do certain tasks that we don't need to do, that allows us to really focus on other things. I think it's challenging though, because there's this great information overload we're dealing with now. There's a lot of stuff coming out, and all I know is that we really need to focus on what's essential, and then we also need to understand that data is important. How we capture data is important, and how we use data in our planning and our design work is even more important than ever before. For us, we've kind of stepped up and said, okay, well, what are we going to do about it as a company? And so what we created was a method we call performance-based design. So within EDSA, on all of our projects, we take the design brief and we isolate topics that are appropriate, that meet the needs of our projects, and we walk our clients through it and say, what things are important to you here? Is place-based design important to you? Well, maybe you can pull a few items from this list and tell us why they're important to this particular project. Through the materials, the ecosystem, energy, water, education, all these things have really started to be captured and informed in the process of planning and design for all of our work now. But we admire a lot of other companies that have been doing this work as well. The Rockwell Group is a company that we work with. They're very experiential designers. They do a lot of really great work, whether it's architecture or interior or even urban planning. They did a fantastic guide for New York in terms of how the city could recapture spaces for outdoor use during COVID. And they've got this group internal to their organization called the Lab, and they just test stuff. I mean, they're a little think tank inside the company, and it's really fantastic to see their work and what they kind of put out there. Perkins and Will is another company we admire that also has been doing some great work with technology. They have a great urban planning group that does a lot of work in the public realm with their landscape architects and their architects and what we call an integrated sort of interdisciplinary design manner, where all the designers are brought to the table, no matter what your specialty is, and you kind of walk through the process of a place and what it should be. And they're utilizing technology to get them there as well, which is great. And then SWA, another contemporary, another company we love a lot. They've been doing the same thing, exploring ideas and sharing them with the public through their internal organization they call IDEA, SWA. I've had a lot of fun working with this group, Stewart, out of North Carolina. They're actually descendants of EDSA, the company, and we still collaborate quite a bit and have a lot in common. And what we love about them is that they've been able to explore ideas to really stress the imagination in terms of design, where you can take the computer and use it to your sort of advantage to look at all types of different ideas through the process of design and stretch them. And actually what they do, which we really love, is they explore ideas digitally over an existing aerial or over an existing plan, and kind of sort of walk you through the story before they actually begin to design. I think that's really fantastic that they're able to create that process. So in wrapping up here, I'm going to touch on an organization, a group internal to EDSA that we have been fortunate enough to create. It's our virtual design and construction team, and they are super talented. They really work on from the digital side of what we do as a company, and really help stretch the creative juices of our designers. And they're an extension of every one of our design teams. They work very closely with us. They help us with support in terms of our software. They work at a lot of the technical stuff, and they help with our standards as well. And for a company that has been drawing for 60 years, it's really amazing to see how we've been able to really capture a little bit more in terms of what we do with some really talented people that understand technology. And they are fantastic. They do a lot of the training in-house. We bring people together to learn how to use the systems, and then we're able to explore a lot of ideas from that standpoint. Now, we've written a lot of their work into our proposals so that we're able to stretch our world from a technological standpoint. And so many of our clients are looking for building information modeling for our projects so that we can sort of see the design in a manner that's much more in keeping with the way the world works today. And so we're not sending a lot of physical plans anymore. We're sending models to our contractors and our clients, and they can walk through them and see how things work. I mean, I think what's great for us is that this technology has allowed us to, grab information from GIS and from websites and drop it into our drawings and quickly, and analyze a site. And we've also been using drone technology to gather a lot of information, and that's been really, really cool. And so we fly drones on our sites. It allows us to grab a lot of information that we can't get on the ground, and it also allows us to explore, different manners of doing the work we do, which is really, really cool. I never thought that we would ever be in this position to do this type of work. We can actually scan a site now. We worked on a really great historic preservation project in Virginia, and the group we were working with, Hanbury out of Norfolk, Virginia, they actually scanned, because drawings weren't available, they actually scanned this entire building and the site, and we were able to extrapolate that information and use it for our work, and it was just so cool to see that come together. And then the other thing that we've learned from this process is that now we can model things that we couldn't model before. Even though we still make physical models that we can touch, and they're little quick study models, we can pull things into the computer, and we have the ability now to share that information with fabricators. And then the fabricators can actually take that information and do just amazing work with it, which is really, really unbelievable. One of the things we learned many years ago was that this ability is going to take us to the next level in terms of our design work and our planning work. So you can go from a quick sketch, you can model that sketch, put it into the computer, and then you can send that model to a fabricator, and they can actually start to make molds for whatever you're trying to make. And this was a panel that we were creating for a project, and they took that panel and actually formed it and made a concrete panel from this form, which is just unbelievable. And all that started from a sketch, which is just crazy to even think about. And so that aspect of our work has allowed us to really understand, how systems work, how things come together, how to make sure that we don't have clashes with other consultants and the type of work they're doing, whether it's underground or above ground, and also really to kind of work through the whole process of design. I think one of the coolest things that we've been able to do is explore it virtually. This is a VR, AR experience that we've been able to utilize on many of our projects. I actually love this because we were able to take our client through this process. We gave them the Oculus goggles because we saw something in the model that we thought wasn't right. A building was in the wrong location. And so the client came down and walked through the model, and he's like, oh yeah, that building is not right. And so while the client was talking to us, we were doing a quick sketch of where the building could be placed, and then we took that sketch, dropped it into the computer, and our modeler moved things around and got it appropriately located. And the client put back on the goggles, and he could see it in real time change right before his eyes. So it was pretty cool. So this process of design, beginning with the sketch, is really important for us. It's the way we work and have been working for quite some time. But now we're able to stretch it even further utilizing the computer, which is super cool. And so on the left, you can see this sort of really great inventory and analysis of a site utilizing digital technology from GIS. And even the sketch informs this in the beginning, where we're kind of bubble diagramming all the different planning moves that we would make here on the site. And then in the upper portion of this image, you can see, a wireframe that we hand sketched over, and we actually created an illustrative from that wireframe. So sometimes you start with a computer and you go to a sketch. Other times you start with a sketch and you go to the computer, which is illustrated in the right-hand column here, where we started with this sketch of this pedestrian bridge. We're able to kind of envision this wild experience that it's very hard to draw on the computer when you don't know where you're going with it. And so when you're able to do a quick sketch to inspire your work in the computer, it makes it a lot easier to translate the information. And as you work your way down through the steps on the right-hand side, you can see how that sketch led to an amazing graphic that is fully modeled and actually can be built from that model, which is even more amazing. And that perspective on the bottom there, again, that perspective started with a SketchUp wireframe, or we're using Rhino, which is another great modeling tool. And then we were able to give it some humanity with an overlay of a hand drawing perspective, which is really cool. Finally, I want to share with you a couple of books. My good friend Nadia Omarosa up at the University of Guelph in Canada she's just a fantastic professor up there that has been really stretching sort of the documentation of this type of work, which really, unfortunately, hasn't been fully pulled together until some of the work that she's done here. And so the book on the left is representing landscapes in an analog way, and we contributed to this book, showing all the different sketches that EDSA does. And we're able to pair that up with several other different designers in our world, planners, urban designers, and architects, and show how landscapes can be represented by hand. And then this hybrid book to the right is one that Nadia put out, which was really fantastic, showing how you can definitely pull the hand graphics and the digital graphics together to create these wonderful experiences. And she has some great contributors, including Young Kim, who's a fantastic landscape architect and designer that has done some just tremendous work as it relates to the landscape. But in closing, what I want to touch on is that the future is pretty amazing. This image is from a galaxy that I was fortunate enough to see from an observation tower in Virginia, and this we think that there's so much that we are controlling, but really we're just a small part of this whole process. And I hope that you all can stretch your ideas and grow the world of planning and design. So I want to thank you so much for your time and attention, and hope you've enjoyed this webinar.
All right, great. Thank you, Gona. Let's go ahead and turn your webcam back on, and we'll get into some Q&A. Folks, again, if you have questions, just type them in the chat box found in your GoToWebinar tool panel, and we'll get started here.
Christine, you want me to stop sharing my screen as well?
Yeah, if you want to, that would be great. Thank you. All right. Okay, our first question is, are there any sketching classes or other types of drawing classes that you would recommend for someone who maybe doesn't have that skill already in their back pocket?
Yeah, definitely. There's plenty of them, and many organizations have classes and programs that they put on as well. There's a group of architectural illustrators out there that do quite a few of these types of webinars and classes related to drawing. But depending on where you are in the country, you can look up these organizations and check into taking one of their classes. But I always remember, because I went to art school, and being in art school, it was fantastic. You're with a lot of other artists and you're drawing. But we always had a few people that decided to take an art class because they just wanted to try it out. And that was fantastic to watch the transformation when you're being taught. And one of the coolest things I remember doing was taking a class on gesture drawing. We had a segment in our class where you were given an instrument to draw with, and the idea was to observe and draw what you saw. And so your eyes never left the object that you were observing, and your hand just sat on the drawing and just kept moving. It never lifted. It just kept moving. And just imagine that process of your brain through your eyes telling your hand what to do. It's pretty amazing. It's actually very therapeutic. It helps you remember things too, and that's something that we think is very important for people. You know, you don't necessarily have to take a class. You just need to draw. And believe it or not, on YouTube, you can learn how to do anything. So I highly encourage you to, if you're interested, and I know that it will help you, I highly encourage you to just take a shot and try something.
Okay, great. Let's talk about materials. What type of sketching materials do you use? Like paper, markers, like sketchbooks, rulers?
Yeah.
Do you have anything?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All of the above.
talk to us. Okay.
So there is a pen. My favorite pen is made by Pentel, company Pentel, Pentel. It's called a sign pen. And with a sign pen, what I love about this is that you can draw a very thin line by just the position of the pen. You can draw a medium-sized line by angling it a little bit. And you can draw a very wide line by angling it a little bit more. And, you know, I believe in drawing fast and just, again, it's not precious, just getting the ideas out on paper and diagramming things. And don't put yourself in a position where it seems challenging. I have a ton of sketchbooks, but this little book is a 3x5 book, and it's tiny. And I use it to kind of, you know, explore ideas. And when I'm reading books like this book I read from Simon Sinek, I just started to diagram the thoughts that I was reading. And it's really, really helpful because it just allows you to get more comfortable with the draw and just have fun. So paper, there's no specific paper you need. I mean, when I didn't have money in college, I was drawing on the butcher block paper that they used to wrap packages with. So you find whatever you can and you draw on it, and that's all that matters. You draw and you draw and you draw, and next thing you know, you'll have a stack of sketchbooks, you'll have a bunch of sketches. You know, take a picture of them. Never crumple them up and throw them away. If you need to make room, take a picture first. Keep that digital library of your work because it's very helpful to kind of go back and continue to learn. But I always tell people when you're first starting out with drawing, or if you're creating big ideas, do not use a sharp pencil. Do not use a thin line. It's really important to either grab a marker or to grab a sign pen or something where you can just make bold strokes fast, and then you come back later and you refine them. Don't commit to something thinking that it has to be done. That's the hard part, because you may draw something beautiful and you're like, oh, wow, this is great. Well, I better stop. I don't want to do anything else. And that's true. Leave it alone. Go to the next sketch.
All right, great. Next question is, I'm a soon-to-be graduate in planning with a certificate in urban design. Congrats. It seems
Awesome.
that most design jobs and even internships want or require a landscape architecture or architecture degree and experience with the software that would go along with it. And I just don't have access to that as a student. How can I get more experience in this type of work and access to the relevant software to build my portfolio?
Oh, great question. So it's unfortunate sometimes because what you learn in school isn't always what you end up doing when you graduate, right? And I think what's important is that you continue to stretch your learning. I mean, learning doesn't end when you graduate from school. I'm going to tell you that right now. I just finished a certificate in commercial real estate development because I just wanted to know more. So take your time to do tutorials online for the software that is being recommended. You can certainly teach yourself how to do it. It's not hard. And there's a lot of tricks out there, and there are a lot of people that will share those tricks, again, on YouTube or through some of the friends you know in school. You can learn a lot of these elements to build your portfolio. I also encourage people to look at the industry from the standpoint of what is being produced today. So, for instance, you know, I go to the American Society of Landscape Architects website and I look at, you know, their award winners. Okay, that's the type of projects or the type of work that people are emulating, right? Or people are saying it's actually good and worthy. And you know, take some time to observe it and absorb it, and you know, use that to inspire your work. You know, a lot of the masters in fine art went through a whole process of training where they actually copied what the master was drawing. You know, so one way to get better at what you do is to take something you like and trace it and continue to work on it and make it better and better and better until you've got what you want. And so even when landscape architects graduate from school and they get into a company, they don't know everything. You may have built a really good portfolio, but you're going to continue to learn. And so there are firms out there that have urban planners in-house, including ourselves, that will look at a portfolio in a very different way from a standpoint of getting you to the point where we just want to see if you understand design, you can write and communicate, and if you have a range of skills. I think that's really what's important. So, you know, as I said before, the learning never stops. So take what you've learned today and make your portfolio, elevate your portfolio to where you want to go. So if you have to add a project that's a special project, that's fine. If you can take a project you finished for a class and add a little bit more to it to make it suitable for a portfolio, please, please, please do that as well.
Okay. Next question. So for communities that are hiring out, for example, to do a comprehensive plan, or they have an RFP to design something, let's just say as simple as a park.
Yep.
There's two ways that you can go. You can hire a planning firm that has designers on staff, or you can hire a design firm that has planners on staff. And, you know, coming from the planning world, you know, we sometimes kind of stick our nose down to those design firms that beat us out, and we say, well, the only reason why they got hired was because they can make really pretty pictures, but they don't know what they're doing. This is totally my question. So speak to that. Tell us what it's really like coming from the design end of things, and how you have that expertise, and in what situations are communities better off hiring a planning firm versus a design firm?
Well, that is such a good question, and I got to tell you, we see it all the time. You know, we do have people in our firm that are planners, and we also collaborate with planners, because we're not a firm that is primarily a planning company. You know, we're a land planning, landscape architecture, and urban designers. So we're really designers that can basically express the policy of the plan, right? In a physical format in terms of what it looks like drawn and also built. But we believe it's super important to collaborate. So, you know, Dover Coal and DPZ, a lot of those companies that are planners that have designers in-house, we end up either competing with them or teaming up with them on many occasions. And I think for a municipality, it's a very tough question, because you have to ask yourself, you know, where do you see this plan, this project going? You know, how far do you want it to go? Now, if it's policy and comprehensive planning, and it's going to sit at a policy level, but you're never going to share sort of the visual aspects of it, you're better off going with a planning firm first, and then bringing in a design firm to help explore those ideas a little bit further. But if you're trying to create a vision to inspire the policy, you probably want to start with a design firm first, and then bring in a planning firm to work together. The ultimate wonderful space is when everyone can come together and work on it together. Because when I'm at a table with a planner, working on a project, we see things differently, and so we bring different traits and different experiences to the problem, and it's beautiful when you work in that frame of mind. And so I'm hoping that people don't have to make an either or decision. I'm hoping that they can make a decision where they're able to bring everyone together. We know budgets end up running into a frame of mind in some of this, but I have to tell all of our colleagues in the planning world is the more we collaborate, the better it is. We can do some really, really great work when we team up, and I think that's the beauty. And I definitely think that designers shouldn't pretend to be planners, and planners shouldn't pretend to be designers. I think we should all work together and know where your strengths are. And one of the things I learned from Ed Stone 20 years ago, who's such a good collaborator and such a wonderful person that just had these great connections with all sorts of designers and planners and architects. He just knew how to bring the right people together, and building that team that was, had all the different experts. It wasn't about our idea at EDSA. It was about the idea that was best for the client and for the community. So that's what I always encourage.
Excellent. There are several questions about low-tech tools that communities can get behind. So for example, like SketchUp, there's free versions of that you can utilize that are fairly user-friendly. Do you suggest that communities use some of these low-tech tools, or does it just become too much of a bother and too much of a pain, and it doesn't turn out well, where they take what's in their head and able to get it into SketchUp? Because I think that's some of the hardest work, is getting visual, transferring what's in your brain onto a paper or screen.
Yeah, it really is challenging. Now, I'm gonna go here, okay? Because I think a lot of people think that it has to be highly technical, and it doesn't. There's low tech is fantastic. We've used models, we've used Legos, we've used little building blocks. All these little tools that some people may think, oh, they're just not sophisticated enough, are actually very, very, very helpful. So if you're planning your city as a municipality, and you're trying to figure out, well, where should density go? Where should we have height? Get a set of Legos, take your aerial, and start placing buildings, moving things around, and saying, okay, I think that's really where we're trying to go. And once you have that vision internally, then you can hire a planner, or you can hire a designer, and you can bring them and say, well, here's our vision. How can you help us interpret it and elevate it to a different level, so we can have drawings and images and visuals to share this idea with the community? At the end of the day, most people do not understand two-dimensional drawings and plans. They need to see it in 3D. They need to see, okay, that's how it works. And scale is very challenging as well, when you're not trained to understand scale. So being able to, take a little scale figure, this is a 6-foot person in relationship to this, building, how tall do you really want that building to be? And where can you create this human experience? Because ultimately that's what it's about. The HX, as I call it, the human experience. How do you create these places for people that they're going to want to, occupy and love and really care about? It's Peter Kageyama, who I love reading, his book about cities and the love of cities. I mean, a lot of that has to do with the work we do as planners and landscape architects and designers. It's just, how do you illustrate to people how they can love their cities? Really what it's all about. So low tech, high tech, use every tech you can possibly use. Just do it. That's really all that matters. Don't wait. Make it happen.
Okay. Yeah, I have in our playroom right now, I have a whole city out of magnetiles right now that you can come see that a 3-year-old put together. So I suppose if he can
exactly
come up with that, right? Okay.
Yeah, that reminds me of my daughter. She's doing a lot of stuff in the computer now, but it's very simple graphics.
Right, I'm impressed. Last question. Tell us honestly, do you feel like hand sketching, hand drawing, um, is it gone, or is it having is there a resurgence in it right now? Do I need to dust off my old graphics rulers and markers and get going again?
Yes, 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 yes. It never left. Okay, there are a lot of new shiny objects that popped around, and people are like, "Oh, wow, that's great." And if you look at the universities, they were responding to what they saw in the market, and so they started to, teach less hand graphics and teach more computer graphics. And you have a limited time. You got to give people as many things as they possibly can learn. But what I would do is compare it to the computer graphics industry, animation industry. In order to get an idea out, you still need to draw it really quick, right? And so you have these really great illustrators that are doing these quick sketches, and then they hand it over to the animator, and the animator makes it digital, right? And if you want to make a different change, sometimes you go back to the illustrator to do another quick little sketch, and you hand it back to the animator. And so this kind of iterative process, it's really what design is all about. And so don't lose any tool. There's a lot of different ways you can design and plan and do the work we do. So don't discard your drawings, your pencils, your pens, in favor of a mouse. You can't do everything you want to do with this mouse. And I've watched people struggle trying to make the computer understand what their head is telling them. And guess what? Mother Nature and the universe gave us this ability to do this, right? And draw. And you would be amazed at how quickly your ideas come to life when you can do that. And you know what? If you're super good at computer graphics and that's your jam, do it. But make sure you team up with someone that can sketch, and you guys can collaborate together. I think that's the best way. So drawing is not dead. It never died. It's still here, and it will be with us forever because it's just the way we do. Yeah, it's the way we design.
Sold.
Keep
Oh
drawing.
gosh, it is 2:30. We have to wrap up. There are so many questions in our queue that we didn't get to.
Oh, man.
So everyone, just go ahead and bombard Kona's email with all of your wonderful questions. We're just gonna have to have
Yeah,
you back again. That's all.
yeah.
So
I'll
thank
come back
you.
and
Good. Maybe we
please
could have a
grab
graphic
those
session.
questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Grab those questions in the chat and shoot them to me. I'll send
okay.
you an email.
So thank you, Kona. We are recording this. We'll post it on our YouTube channel. We'll also have a copy of the slide deck on our Webcast webpage, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. Don't forget to log your CM credits. And thank you to the Urban Design and Preservation Division of APA for hosting Kona today. Everyone, have a great weekend. Do a little drawing, and we'll talk next time.
Awesome. See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks.